Good morning, everyone. Today I'd like to talk about the geography of Africa and migration. Africa is the second largest continent of the world. Africa is made up of three major geographic features that help shape its history and development. Nevertheless, I would also like to talk about rivers. Rivers were attractive locations for the first civilizations because they provided a steady supply of drinking water and made the land fertile for growing crops. Moreover, goods and crops could be transported easily, and the people in these civilizations could fish and hunt the animals that came to drink water. Additionally, those lost in the wilderness could return to civilization by traveling downstream, where the major centers of human population tend to concentrate. The Nile River is the biggest river in Africa. The river comes from the meeting of three rivers from Sudan, Uganda, and Ethiopia. The Nile is also called the giver of life and the taker of life, and we discussed that when we talked about Egypt. The Nile is called the giver of life because it provides drinking water, irrigation for crops, and a means of travel and trade. The Nile is called the taker of life because sometimes heavy rains cause too much overflow. As a result, crops are destroyed and people lose their lives. Now let's turn our attention to deserts. The deserts are found in the northern and southern parts of Africa. The northern part of Africa consists of the Sahara Desert. It is the hottest desert in the world. Sun dunes cover 1/4 of the Sahara, but this desert also has bare, rocky plains and even mountains. Yet it separates North Africa from the rest of the continent. The desert is not a suitable place for large settlements. Some areas of the Sahara do not get any measurable rain. In fact, deserts are areas that typically get only fewer than 10 inches of rain a year. In the few places where there is water, an oasis can be found, yet these places are rare in Africa. Early settlers moved around to find new areas to graze their livestock and hunt for food. Trade routes across the Sahara was an important part of the economies of ancient Africa. Goods such as gold, salts, slaves, cloth, and ivory were transported across the desert using long trains of camels called caravans. Now let's turn our attention to the savannas. The savanna region is a grassland with grasses and some trees. However, trees are short and scattered, yet it is favorable to settlement. The savannas are migration areas for animals like buffaloes and zebras in some parts, yet grazing land for cattle, goats, and sheep in other areas. Although the soil is rich, farming can be challenging because of disease-carrying insects. Moving on to rainforests. The land near the Congo River is lush tropical rainforest, home to the world's second largest tropical rainforest. A rainforest is a dense, evergreen forest with an annual rainfall of at least 60 inches. Rainforests are found in parts of the world that are warm and humid and usually in an area near the Earth's equator. For most of Africa's history, the rainforest has been home to some small groups of people who live by hunting and gathering food from the forest or living on subsistence farms. The climate is hot and wet with an average yearly rainfall of 70 inches. The rivers and streams in a rainforest support fish, alligator, crocodiles, etc. In the Congo, trees are so thick and tall that sunlight never reaches the forest floor. The area is home to birds, frogs, toads, and snakes, as well as monkeys and chimpanzees. Early settlers lived simple lives that had little impact on their environment. Yet that would change when European nations discovered the riches in the rainforest. For example, tropical crops, gold, and diamonds. Deforestation also became a problem. It is the process of rainforests being destroyed to make way for human development. This brings me to the topic of migration. Migration is a permanent move from one country or region to another. There are factors that can either push people out of an area or pull them into an area. Historians and geographers call them push-pull factors. Some examples of push factors are climate, exhausted resources, earthquakes, volcanoes, drought, famine, unemployment, slavery, war. Some examples of pull factors are abundant land, new resources, good climate, employment opportunities, political or religious freedom. So what are some of the effects of migration? Well, you have redistribution of the population may change population density, cultural blending of languages or the way of life may occur, ideas and technology may be shared. There may be clashes between groups that may create unrest, persecution, or even war. Environmental conditions may change, causing famine or depleted natural resources. Employment opportunities may dry up, creating unemployment. In conclusion, migration changes the lives of those who migrate and also of the people in the communities where they settle. Both groups may need to make adjustments in the way they live. However, some adjustments may be more difficult to make than others. For example, people bring their languages with them when they move. An example of this is the Bantu people. Around 1000 BC, much of Africa was covered in small villages of primitive people who shared languages that were similar to one another. This had a unifying influence on the continent. Because the languages they shared are known as Bantu, these people are referred to as Bantu people. The spread of the Bantu people was through migration. Due to the lack of resources, Bantu-speaking people migrated out of North Central Africa. They migrated south into the rainforest regions around the Congo, and they migrated east into the East African highlands. Whenever they migrated, they imposed their languages, which mixed with and replaced indigenous languages. After adapting to their environment, the Bantu people developed new farming techniques. Due to the environment and Bantu farming techniques, bananas became a major crop. They adapted their methods for herding goats and sheep to raising cattle. They also developed ironworking. The success in these areas and the exchange of other skills and ideas greatly advanced Africa's cultural landscape. Bantu government. The Bantus lived in small villages that were governed by a chief, council, or by elders. These villages were typically made up of extended family, but marriage among people of different villages was common. The negative effects of their migration. The lands they occupied were not always unpopulated. For instance, they ran into people like the Bambuti and the San. Territorial wars often broke out. Armed with iron-tipped spears, the newcomers easily drove them off. This concludes my lesson on the geography of Africa and migration. I hope everyone enjoyed it and have a good day.